Hello everybody, this is Sophie, and today I'm going to be testing out this beautiful calligraphy set. I'll explain it later in the video, but first I'm going to explain this series. Welcome to the first episode in my process exploration series. I explained this in my last video, but I'm creating this series because I haven't created a big final piece of art since summer of 2018. Yeah, it's been that long, and I think that's mostly because of confidence and because I just don't feel comfortable with my art materials or my style. So in this series, I want to explore all the different art materials I have at home and develop a process with using each one of them so I can become more comfortable creating bigger final pieces instead of just always working in my sketchbook. With this, I hope to be able to work through my list of final pieces I've had in my mind instead of waiting till I feel ready, as well as create final pieces as soon as they come to me instead of backlogging them forever. This series will basically be broken up into 2 to 3 videos for every material. The first video will be exploring the idea and developing it so it is ready to be used for the final pieces. If I need to experiment more, you may see a second video for that. And finally, the last video for every art medium will be dedicated to the final piece. That'll probably just be simple with music because I know a lot of people like seeing that on its own. This video, however, is a little bit funny because I really didn't intend to use this for this series. So let's go back a little bit. This December, during the holidays, I was gifted this beautiful calligraphy set from my boyfriend's parents, and it was one of those things that was just so beautiful. I was so appreciative, but so scared to use it. In the past, I would do the same thing with like really nice stickers. I don't know if this is just me, but when I was a kid, I'd be like, these are so beautiful. I love them so much. I don't want to use them up by sticking them somewhere dumb and regret it. So I would just never use them, and they'd sit on the sticker paper in a drawer somewhere, and obviously that completely opposes the point of having stickers or nice things. And same thing with art material, you know? If you're scared, it goes against the point of owning it because you'll be scared and your work may suck until you get more comfortable and gain confidence. So that's what I'm trying to do. I woke up this morning and it was the first super sunny day of spring. You could see the sun rays coming through the window here. I think it ended up being almost 20 degrees outside Celsius. And I felt so inspired to use this calligraphy set finally. I don't know why. I should probably work on not having to wait for, 4 months to be able to feel inspired, but whatever. It worked out. And I thought it'll be a good day to film this really chill video, trying out this new material before I start this big series I have planned. But then, obviously this turned into the first episode, so I will explain why. This morning, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to draw. I just knew I wanted to draw. So I went through the notes on my phone to get some inspiration because I usually leave notes in my journal or on my phone with random ideas because, I might need them later, or at that time I didn't know what I wanted to create with it. And I actually had left this weird note. I thought I was going to use it for something written, I think, but funnily enough, this is a whole side note, but a little after writing this note on my Instagram, I saw this piece of art from an artist, and I just thought that was so cool. Like, they made their own version. We had, the same sort of strange, similar idea, but they're going to turn out so different. I just wanted to shout out this artist. I thought it was very cool. I saw this after I made my note, but anyways, back to the topic. I tried this calligraphy set with the idea of this egg cracking, like I said in the note, and I thought I'd simplify it, just work on some gloopy egg effects rather than, the whole idea itself. And I'm going to talk about the medium before I discuss the piece. So this set comes with a few calligraphy brushes, which I definitely need more experience using. They're just so soft, and I'm not used to using them. So I switched over to my usual brushes pretty quickly in. It also comes with an ink block and an ink stone, so you grind up the ink yourself, which you saw at the beginning of this video, and I love this process. It's just so relaxing. It's like painting in the sun on a lovely day. It feels like that, but you don't have the pressure of having to be creative, if that makes any sense. It's just a great way to start a painting. It's a perfect setup to start being creative. I love this. So I was testing out the ink and testing out how it granulates here. And then I started to think, I wonder what this would look like with some watercolor layered on top of the ink. And this actually has a really interesting look because the ink doesn't dry completely waterproof, but it dries, it won't be completely affected by the watercolor. So light layers of watercolor don't affect it too much, and you see the granulation of the ink below without disturbing it, and I love it. I need to explore this more, but I definitely tried it out on the egg, and you'll see that in a second. So I have that mysterious bottle of ink, which I talked about in my last video, which I mostly just use with my dip pens or for filling in backgrounds. And that ink dries completely flat on the paper, almost like markers. Like you can't feel it if you run your fingers against it. But this one dries extremely textured, which I like a lot. It's just completely different from any material I've ever used before, and I really am happy I tried to use it. So basically, I explored this idea using the calligraphy ink, testing it out, planning on keeping this short, but I kept thinking about the idea. So I worked on these sketches here in my messy, no pressure sketchbook. This is my sketchbook I use when I have an idea, but I don't want to commit to a final piece. And I eventually arrived at an idea that I really liked, and that's when I knew I was gonna, this wasn't gonna just be a short, chill video. So I wanted to explore the different ways I could use this ink. So here I am trying to use it more like watercolors, and I sketched out this face, and it was a rough morning. I had so much trouble with this one, and with the sketching I had problems, and with the watercolor I had problems, and so that was the morning. And normally at that point, after having problems and the features all being off, I would have quit. But I was saying in my mind, this is in my sketchbook, and I'm only doing this watercolor piece with the intention of figuring out how I lay down watercolor so I can use the ink. And so I think my attitude has improved a little bit, honestly, since being on YouTube, because, man, I would have quit any other time. And so I waited a few hours, take the pressure off of using the ink because I had a weird morning, and I went back in with the ink and I put in those lines for the nose and the mouth with the pen, as you can see, because that's, I think, where I messed up some of the features in the watercolor one. And I used the similar techniques that I used with the watercolor layering to start, filling in this face. And I really love how it turned out, and I'm really happy I tried this. And so, I don't know, I really like this ink because it feels so versatile, because it acts very similarly to watercolor, but then it dries in such an interesting way, in such an interesting texture. And so it's just funny to think about how long I put off using this ink, even though I really like it and I need to not do this anymore, So, funnily enough, I thought I was about ready to start the next stage in my bigger piece after completing this, because I was like, wow, I love the way this granulates, I love the way it layers, I think I'm good to go. But then after completing this piece, I had some extra ink on my inkstone, so I did this little eye on the side, which I'll show in a minute, and I used a completely different technique, just with a thin paintbrush, getting rid of the ink on my stone with a bunch of lines. And I was like, oh, maybe maybe I want to explore this technique too, which is really exciting because, this is the whole point of this series, is just to test out my materials, see what my limitations are, and, develop the capabilities, test my capabilities with a medium and develop my skill with it, as well as, getting through the ideas I have in my head. And so little pieces like this are... They're nothing like that important, but it's for experimentation, and it doesn't have to be everything's that you're doing for a final piece is directly for the final piece. Anywho, I feel like I'm developing a better mentality when it comes to creating a final piece, because it's not all or nothing with it. You can make little tiny pieces as you go, and I don't know, I'm happy about it. So here I am using that super liney technique. I really like this as well. This was the next day. I tried using it and I love the look of it. And I think this would look really good mixed with the other two techniques. So I was pretty excited, actually, for once, I think, to go into this final piece. And I also think for once I didn't feel that pressure of how am I going to use this material? I have no idea, because I had tested out all the ways that I could think of, and this one isn't even one that I thought of until I was getting rid of the ink on my inkstone. It's just, it's fun to know that because I was testing this out, I hope, at least, I haven't done the piece yet at this point, but I really hope that doing all this experimentation will allow me to go into this final piece more prepared. And after doing this little sketch, I did actually experiment a little bit more with how I wanted to mix all three of the techniques. The three techniques being the first one, where I laid down a very blocky look and let it granulate, just one layer. And then the second one being layering it like watercolor. And then this one, the very strokey, liney technique. And all together, I think it can make something really cool, especially with my final idea, which I realize I haven't really shown you much of yet, but I'm going to in just a moment. And so Honestly, I've never done this before, but I think if I had the opportunity, I would have liked to sketch out my final piece very small in my sketchbook, take a picture, and work on it digitally. Because as much as I felt ready to ink after doing this whole process, I did not feel ready to sketch out my piece. I don't know why I was putting so much pressure on sketching, but I think it was just like I really want to be able to transfer my messy sketches and get it to a place where it's clean enough that I can use all these cool techniques I've experimented with. So I was putting a lot of pressure on it, but I finally did it. And just a side note, I don't have the opportunity to work on it digitally or anything like that. And I can work on it digitally, but I can't print it out to work on it traditionally again. So right now that's not an option. So I knew I was just going to have to go in with my messy sketches and use my own reference photos and just not put so much pressure on it. So that's what I'm doing here. And I used 2 reference photos that were my own, those being for my face and my arms extending, and then also my oven, which I didn't draw into cleanly, but I used it as an example. Then I also used a reference photo online for the eggs cracking or the egg cracking, which I'll put in the description below. I always put reference pictures in the description below, though I don't usually stick very closely to them. It's always there, and so you can always find them if you want the other ones as well for the faces. And I'll also put the link for this calligraphy set, but I'm not sure exactly which one it was because it was a gift. So I'm going to link similar looking products, and it's up to your discretion to decide which one looks the best because I read the reviews and they're really all over the place. Anywho, I sketched out this final piece on a separate piece of paper, taking into account the size of the paper. That's why I had to make it bigger, because my final artwork is going to be on a bigger paper and I don't have the opportunity to enlarge it digitally, right? Or to print it out again. So I had explored a bunch of options in those messy sketches. So this was a lot more about cleaning up the thing rather than creating my idea. So I used this sketch mostly to just get out my messy lines, which I did with my pencil crayon, and then I went over in pen, and nothing is going to probably end up looking like this because I'm going to use a cleaner reference for the oven. I'm going to spend a lot more time working on the face, but this is more for placement so I can know where everything goes. And I think at this point, it is about ready to be transferred to my final piece of paper. So, well, it will be in a moment, you'll see. So if you like this video explaining how I got to my final piece, tune in next time. It should be up pretty soon. You will see me completing this final piece. And if you want to see how this final piece looks, be subscribed, or if not, subscribe or just stalk my channel. I don't know what you want to do, but this wraps up this video. I'll have a lot more process exploration videos exploring bigger pieces coming out soon. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of this series that will probably be going on for a little bit on my channel.